First of all, you don't know me.
We're all about that high school drama girl, all about them high school queens. We'll take you for a ride in our comic girl, cheering for the right team. Drama queens, smart girl, rough girl, fashion but you're tough girl. You could sit with us, girl. Drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens.
You guys, season 4, episode 15.
Woo!
We dressed up. We dressed up.
Oh my gosh. I'm so jealous. I didn't get the memo.
No, you're traveling for work.
I know, but I just cleaned my office and found my crown, and I was like, oh, this is so nice. So I put it on top of a bottle of your whiskey, which is in my house.
Oh, thank you.
And it's sitting there on my bar. And I didn't bring it with me, and I should have. But you both look very beautiful. Prom queens indeed.
You're like basically filming at a castle right now. So you're...
I am.
This episode originally aired February 21st, 2007, a real follow-up to our Valentine's Day show. On the day of prom, the residue of Nathan's pre-prom party has serious repercussions for everyone in Tree Hill. Haley asks Nathan for a list of all his past sexual conquests. Oh my God, do not ever do that. Rachel is suspended after taking the blame for the exam that she stole with Brooke. Peyton tells Lucas she wants to skip the prom entirely, but he doesn't want to take no for an answer. And finally, Marvin McFadden and Brooke must deal with dating clean teens on prom night.
Yeah!
Cuties.
This episode was directed by our very own Paul Johansson, and he crushed it.
Wow, prom episode. This is so fun. I love the big episodes like this. This one was a huge one. I had so much to say about this episode, and I'm upset that I'm not going to be here for this entire podcast. But I have to, first off, Hilarie, you are such a good actress.
Oh.
The scenes that you did, it was so nice to see Peyton take a turn from being you've gone through all the phases of weepy, and then you were having fun for a while, and now it's like you're just getting angry. And we haven't seen Peyton do that in a way that is so confident and solid. I've seen Peyton throw a fit before. I don't know that I've seen Peyton just kind of come into a confidence in her own of everything has shifted, and you put everything emotionally into place with how you felt about what Brooke and Nathan did. And you were like, okay, that's it. I know exactly where I stand right now. And it was just so solid. And then the emotional turn that you had with Brooke in the yard, it was just talking about your mom. It made me cry, and I'm driving, and I was like, stop crying, I'm driving. It was really, really good. So well done.
Thanks. Well, thanks. I think that we were all really lucky that in this big episode we had Paul directing. Because Paul knew us, man. Paul knew the shit that was going on in real life. He knew all the stuff our characters had to do before, and
Yeah.
I think everyone turned in really good performances this episode. And so while we have you, I want to talk about yours, because it is so it makes that your throat burn when you think about asking your partner to make a sex list.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Basically, we're doing the thing that you do in horror films where we're like, Haley, don't come in the house.
Don't do it. And she's so pregnant and hormonal. But the writing I thought was hilarious on this one. The fact that I got to be so irrational and just out of control.
I didn't find it irrational at all. You totally made it. It made sense to me.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was really fun. I was surprised. That was this episode. I remembered being in the rooms. This is the episode I slapped Rachel too, right? Or was that no, that was the last one. I remember.
Yes, that was the last one.
It was the last one.
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. So that one I wasn't here for.
You and James have such great comedy in this. And it's very Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy. It's fast. It's try to keep up, That's Haley's energy. It's no, do what I asked you to do, but also don't do what I asked you to do. And you two are getting to do funny stuff. Maybe for the first time. You guys have been very sweet together. You've had fights. You've been vulnerable and emotional, but you're being funny together this episode.
Thanks. I was glad that they didn't write Haley's reaction to this as like another big, overwhelming, sad, sulky, like, how could you do this? I don't know who I just didn't want to mope. I was so happy that she was just kind of a grown up about it. Like, wow, this stuff.
Yeah. It's not even that you're mad that he made the tape. It's that you're mad that he still has it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Do you use it?
It's gross. It's so horrible. It's so horrible. And the natural fear, because don't forget, in the prior episode, when everyone's yelling, oh my God, Nathan and Peyton made a sex tape, Peyton comes running, screaming, turn it off. Haley witnesses all of this. So Haley turns and looks at her husband and goes, oh, old Nathan videotaped every time he had sex with a girl? Wow. Like that camcorder was set up in his bedroom.
It was
didn't have to go get it.
No.
It was there. It was
right
there.
At the end of the bed.
Oh.
And so, why was it already there?
Girl. Well, so essentially the discovery of, oh, you have this whole other life, this whole other series of proclivities, these fantasies that I know nothing about, that can be really hard. I remember years and years ago, I don't know what it is now, but when we were doing the show, it might have even come up because of this episode. There was like a big piece that got published about how like over 30% of people feel like if their partner has a secret porn habit, that is cheating.
Yeah.
Like that's a really intense thing to find out that someone has a whole sex life that has nothing to do with you. Yeah. And I loved that we were able to talk about the reality of how complicated it is to figure out what the person you love likes that has nothing to do with you. But we did it in a funny way. It's like it gave people permission to have the conversation. But it, to your point, Joy, it wasn't mopey. It wasn't like hitting us over the head with another dramatic thing. And I loved it. I also have to say something about this tape. I have to say something. Hilarie and I talked about this last week. You were at work.
No, Joy, listen, she's so upset about this.
Because this is really fucked up. And look, I get that the point was that Brooke essentially was going to be told, like, you betrayed me too, with the Peyton and Lucas of it all. And their whole thing is, this was one drunk night and you had a full emotional affair and you lied to me and you snuck around behind my back. Each person decides why the other person is the wrong one.
Yeah.
But I remember how upset I was when we got this script. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. Like, this is so unforgivable. And they gave me this whole thing about no. At the opening of 415, Peyton is on a tear. Nathan's doing body shots off Bevan. They get in a big screaming fight and she dumps him. And then she comes to Brooke and Brooke is wasted and having a good time and says, you hate Nathan. He's mean to you. I know what you need. Take 2 of these and call me in the morning. And she yanks over 2 like hot guys and like shows them to Peyton. And Peyton looks at her and goes, I'm not like you. I'm not a 2-bit in front of everyone and walks away.
Ooh.
And so when Brooke sits down with Nathan and he says, Peyton broke up with me, she says, Peyton just like, I don't remember what it was, but it was essentially like she just said the meanest thing anyone's ever said to me. And he looked at her and was like, want to get back at her? And it was like a thing that they made a decision on. And for me, when the episode aired and I saw that they had cut that out, I was like, listen, everybody's in the wrong here. But when you take away the like core wound
context,
that when your best friend has said the meanest thing, like at 15 that you think anyone can say to you, I was like, oh my God, I sobbed when I watched this.
Oh, like, no.
Sobbed.
You know what? You're right. Because what it turned into was kind of gross and creepy. Nathan being like, you were just drunk enough.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, you're
like
drunk?
him taking advantage of a drunk girl.
And then even further, it says it when you get into the bedroom. He's like, you need another drink? Like, what are we doing here? This is
exactly. And it went from being two kids. We've talked so much about how in like all these ways, Nathan and Brooke are really similar and like their friendship can be this great respite for each other. And you could have seen why these two made this really bad decision in the versions of themselves they were 2 years ago, and then both tried to pretend it never happened and never talked about it again. And like Brooke even says, like, I kind of like, I was really drunk. I kind of wanted it to be a bad dream, which is so fucking sad.
Yeah.
And it goes from being like, ooh, that was the worst versions of us, and now we're better versions of us, to just like her in particular being the bad guy. Like she really gets blamed. And I just felt like it was so cruel. It like, I don't know, it made me feel very defensive of her, which is probably an insane thing to say because she's not an actual person, but she feels like a person.
She's
to me.
real.
She's real to me.
Yeah, but it does. But then you went through seasons and seasons after seasons, episodes and episodes after that, functioning in a certain way, believing that Brooke
just did that for
it
no
affects,
reason.
Yeah, it just affects the way that you look at your performance and who Brooke has been over the last like 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It's no good. I don't like that.
And there was supposed to be the tie-in with Peyton calling her that to Peyton putting it on her dress. And it was like, it was a whole thing about like this like mortal wound, and they took it away, but they didn't take away you dumping him. And I was like, that's really fucked up. Like
it gives him an excuse, but not her.
But not you.
Yeah,
exactly. And I didn't like
because the excuse that Haley and Peyton get the whole time is it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything. Which those are just like dumb, empty words. If it instead had been like, no, you were being a fucking bitch that night. Like,
I was trying to get back at you, and I feel really horrible about it.
Yeah, you were awful to both of us. We did something regrettable, and because we regretted it, we buried it. Like,
that could have been a more interesting conversation. Anytime someone tells me it didn't mean anything, I'm like, oh, okay, tell me more.
I'm like, how many soap operas have you watched, you loser?
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the things that happens a lot with TV that's different from film, I think, is that, there's people in an office who are not artists, and then there's writers. And the writers are in TV are preoccupied with the next episode and everything. And, they're all often just trying to piecemeal things together if something doesn't make sense or if an episode's too long or whatever. And so it's everyone except the people responsible for those characters in the room making creative decisions about the characters. And it's really frustrating. It happens all the time in TV. And there's nothing that really actors can do about it. You just have to show up and trust that, the people who are working with the office people really have your back. And sometimes they just can't because they're too distracted. They have too many other things, or maybe they don't care. I don't know. It can be tough.
Joy, before you have to go, what you said you remember filming this episode. You had a really, really nice scene with Chad in the kitchen. Do you remember that one?
I just watched it like an hour ago. What happened? What happened in the kitchen?
You're like, talking about Peyton's ex-boyfriend in the video, and Nathan says, or Lucas says, well, Nathan's not like her ex-boyfriend either. She said, like, don't be like Peyton's ex-boyfriend. You're encouraging Lucas to go to Peyton, show up for her, and don't be like her ex-boyfriend. And he's like, well, why don't you be nice to Nathan? Because he's not like her ex-boyfriend either.
Yeah.
You two had such a good chemistry in that scene. And Lucas is being Lucas, bouncing back and forth between Brooke and Peyton again.
Yeah.
You're the person that lets the audience see him, like, for the good boy that he is.
I always miss seeing Haley and Lucas on camera because we started the show that way. It was so much Haley and Lucas. And so whenever we get to see them together again, and I even, I saw Chad at an event recently, and it's like, no matter how much time goes by, no matter what, it just feels like you've been through so much together. It's family. It's like there's a comfort level. And it was like, man, we could easily be walking down the street, down Front Street right now again. It's great. I love Lucas and Haley.
I think it's also nice to see, Nathan's taking a lot of responsibility going on his apology tour. And it's nice to see their brotherly relationship with Lucas kind of following Nathan around, trying to keep everyone calm in the wake of the crisis. Like,
I didn't even realize that's what Lucas was doing.
But it's like a nice seesaw. In a way, they're like, let's divide and conquer. And so they're sort of like rotating around each other, trying to solve this problem.
The brotherly love. I do love that.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed, seeing Nathan take it on the chin and be the best version of himself. And I appreciated that Lucas was reminding everyone who their friends really are. He does it for Brooke, and he does it for Haley, and he does it for Peyton. He says to Peyton, look, in a way, Lucas is the only person in this episode, by the way, who says, yeah, they did something dumb years ago when they were drunk. We did this thing for a long time behind her back, Peyton.
He finally acknowledges it.
And he acknowledges it for the first time. And she, granted, isn't ready to hear it. But it's kind of impressive. And he uses that reality of, look, this is what we did, and we did it for a long time. And this is the reality now. And then he says, you're better than this.
Listen, my take on Lucas is that he's so pumped that he's not at the center of this storm.
Also that.
For so long, he was the dipshit doing dumb stuff with multiple girls,
Yes.
And just like, hey man, this is my opportunity to like clean the slate. Like,
oh my God, it's great.
What if we all forgive each other's mistakes? That'd be cool.
Yeah. He's just standing in the middle of the hurricane, just watching the women in his life, his mother, Peyton, Haley, Brooke, everybody's just going off the rails. And he's just taking it on the chin, trying to handle everybody.
Yeah, be a big girl, Peyton.
So funny.
So good.
Yeah, and he really does take it on the chin, because lest we forget when Lucas and Nathan have their scene.
Oh yeah.
Where Nate apologizes and Lucas says something about, I just don't ever want to see a tape of you and Peyton. Nathan just takes a breath and goes, well, you never will, because Haley destroyed all the tapes in the house. And I was like, oh my God. Like, he just goes ahead and says, don't worry about it, man. And it's so
that was my only confirmation that existed. Even I was like, wait, what? There's tapes?
I know. I was like, this is really horrible. And I don't know if maybe we were talking about this because we were in the era of all those reality girls having their sex tapes come out.
Oh
I don't know why this was such a big deal, but God, when he just said that, when Nathan says that to Lucas with such a straight face in the kitchen, I almost fainted.
Yeah,
I was like, oh.
But also, I have a very strong appreciation for a singular tape that can be destroyed. Do you know what I mean? In the age of the internet and in the age of like, people downloading things or sending them digitally, like having a tape that you can rip the physical film out
burn
and destroy. What a treat. I miss the good old days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
God, I know.
I just want to see Haley with a hammer. Just like
that's it. I know, that was the one thing.
I want to see Haley with a lighter and a barbecue. Like just lighter fluid that shit on a Weber grill outside and burn it.
Angela Bassett.
So funny. Damn.
It would have been so funny.
Really it would have worked too. Oh well. I gotta go. I love you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us. Have fun in the castle.
Birthday.
Okay. Great performances in this episode, both of you.
Well, same.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so, there's a lot of there's just a lot of nuance that I didn't catch the first time around, and I'm loving it, and I'm also a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, because we're finding out things about ourselves, our characters that we didn't know. That's what it is. It honestly feels like exactly like what Brooke is experiencing, that you did something dumb and drunk at a party and you don't remember until people start reminding you, and then the pieces come back together,
Yeah.
I forgot about Peyton and Nathan and nipple rings and sex tapes and showers together. Like all of it has been wiped from my memory because,
of course.
For the last couple years, it's Luke.
Yeah.
The reminder is brutal.
Oh, it is so brutal. And I think it can be really hard especially when something from so far in your past comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Lucas says it. He says she's acting like it just happened.
Yeah.
And then Haley has the counter, well, it did just happen to her. You know, she just found out about it. But for Brooke and Nathan, I would bet you they've both literally forgotten that this ever happened.
Yeah.
And now it's back to bite them in the ass. And what a total nightmare.
Yeah.
Like,
but
oh.
nightmare, but also a great platform for some comedy, because you and I, as we watched Haley be like, I want the list. Guys, Sophia and I are sitting here sidebar texting each other about lists. Like, you don't want the list. You don't want the list. You think
nobody
you want
wants
the list?
that list. It's a real bad idea.
Wow.
You
No.
don't want the list, and if you
there's
have
sometimes-
one, you shouldn't keep a list. Don't make a list. It's a
Mm-mm.
recipe for disaster.
Don't make a list for us to find in your drawers. Or
Oh my God. You don't want that list, Haley.
No. I've had a couple situations where I have learned after the fact that I have engaged with someone who has been with my partner. And it makes me happy that I don't know, because when I interact with them, I'm a cool girl. You know, I'm not being territorial or weird. I'm just being fun and cool. And so then when I find out later, I'm like, okay, fine. You know?
You don't want to know before. Knowing before makes it worse, because then you're not really yourself when you meet that person.
Yes.
It's just not possible. I don't know. I don't want people to keep secrets from me, but I also am like, I don't think I need to know. Like I remember finding out that a girl who had been so awful to one of my best guy friends in a relationship that they were in, like tortured this sweet boy.
Yeah.
Years later, I was dating someone and found out he had also dated this girl.
Oh.
And I almost broke up with him over it. Like I couldn't.
It made you think his taste was bad.
It got in my head in a way that I was like, I don't think I can get over this. And I just was like, I don't know how to understand this about you. And I was like, man, I just wish I'd never known this. I don't want to know this.
Here's the deal. There's a fine line between knowing who your person has had significant relationships with. Like, I can look at the people that my husband has dated and been like, those are all really talented, ambitious, smart women. Like, I feel like I am in good company.
Yeah.
And then also, like, I have dated people who only ever dated trollops, you know? I did not feel like I was in good company. And so I think knowing what your person's history is in terms of how they respect women, what they're attracted to, that can be helpful.
Yeah.
I don't need to know every person on the list.
No, I don't want it.
Oh,
I don't want it.
pass. It's almost funnier to just assume it's everyone, right? Just to be like,
That's actually a great strategy.
yeah, you've kissed everyone, and I'm the last one. I'm the one. I'm the one that made you stop.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah, feather in our caps, Sophia. We did.
I'm into it. Look at us.
Look at us. We broke them.
Well, we also did the damn thing in this episode, unfortunately, to each other.
Oh, baby.
That fight.
I still am sweaty about this.
No, it's okay. We were in it. Like, it was such a real fight. And I know we've talked a little bit about, you know, stunts and things, but it's choreography and you're also in the moment. And yeah, there was one moment where we were facing each other and like we were each supposed to go left.
I was supposed to have, I remember this so clearly because I was really upset that I'd hurt you. I was supposed to be holding your arms down. And when we landed, I could only get your left hand, so on my right hand side, down. And that was bad for you because you had nothing to do with your other hand. You couldn't like hit me. It was like I had to hold both hands so that you could struggle against them. And I was bringing my arm across to go and get your other hand right as you leaned forward, and I cracked you in the head. Yeah. And I don't know if that's how you remember it.
Yeah, but the
I
thing
remember the crack and being like, oh no. It was scary. It was scary.
I remember thinking like, wow, that was really loud. And then thinking, was it only loud because it was in my head? And then I saw your face and like looked around and everyone's eyes were big and mouths were open. And I was like, oh, everybody heard that. And we like stopped for a minute. But in my head, yeah, to your point, like my memory is that like we were both supposed to go left and like,
well, your left and my left are two
left,
different
but
lefts.
I went right, and it just, yeah, it was a collision of epic proportions.
Well, we didn't have rehearsal, like we had a little bit of rehearsal, but we're shooting outside, we're on location, we're fighting daylight. It is a hugely emotional scene, and there's two of them back to back because we had to do. I'd totally forgotten about the scene where Brooke comes to Peyton's door and they have the fight at the door, and then Brooke leaves before she comes back to egg the house. So we had two huge emotional scenes.
Big scenes, yeah.
And there's no time to just like 5, 6, 7, 8,
Yeah.
That's
no. They didn't coordinate with us as well as they should. I think especially because we were 4 years in, they were like, they're professionals. Sophia and Hilarie, they can do
fist fought everybody.
They're great. We were always the ones who'd say like, yeah, we can do it. Just show us where you need us to be. We'll make it work. That was always our thing. Like, oh, we're running out of time. We'll make it work. And then you realize, oh yeah, for some stuff we should probably have choreography. But the thing that struck me about it, because it's such a beautiful scene between us, and I guess part of the reason I'm butthurt about them taking that beginning out is because in different ways, each of these girls has this mortal wound.
Yeah.
And they get expressed with different terms. Brooke's is a criticism of who she is, certainly. Judgment and sexism and all those things, coming from my end of it. And what I saw in this scene, watching it back, is that you got to tell me the worst thing I'd ever said to you. And I think the wound I feel for Brooke is that she didn't get to express, like, you said one of the worst things like a person could say to me, like you treated me like everybody else. And the thing that really sticks out to me, obviously Peyton's wound, the mother thing is the biggest and the baddest and the worst. And what it illuminated for me in our fight, in these girls who've been there for each other since they were so little, is that they both have actually the same core wound. It's abandonment. And they're the ones who've shown up for each other forever. And in this moment, they've abandoned each other. And what Peyton voices to Brooke is, you abandoned me.
Yeah. And
Brooke has to see that the thing she has felt that Peyton did to her is exactly what she's done to Peyton. And it took my breath away. Seeing it as an adult and really seeing the subtext of the conversation between us, I was like, oh, these girls have held, like, they used to come together to comfort each other from this wound, and now they're stabbing each other, and it really gutted me.
It really hurt when I heard Brooke say, you win, you win, You got the boy, you got the dress, you got everything that you wanted. Because for so long, Peyton was trying to center Brooke and be like, just be with him, be happy. I'm going to keep my secret as long as you're happy, And that was like a really hard thing to hear, because Peyton doesn't feel like it's a win, like it doesn't feel like a win. And so to have the person you love be like, fine. The other thing that really strikes me that I didn't figure out till adulthood, but that is definitely on display in this scene, is that we can love a lot of people. Like, you and I love a lot of people. We don't give a lot of people permission to hurt us. That's the next level. And I personally have very few people in my life who I will let in enough to hurt me, because I'm so conditioned to be like, you know what, you're probably going to fuck up at some point. So we're going to pump the brakes right here. We'll stay at love. Love feels fun. Brooke and Peyton are the only people who can hurt each other.
Yeah.
Lucas can't hurt them. He's already done it to both of them. Nathan can't hurt them. Like no, their parents can't hurt them. They're the only people that they care enough about to give them that power.
Yes. And I think that's why the you win hurts so much. Because what Brooke is really saying is, you were the one person I trusted and you broke it. So now you're getting all the stuff everybody builds to have one person, and I have no one. Like, that's what Brooke is saying to Peyton. You have someone who loves you. Like, I'm out here trying to date. I'm out here trying to find a boyfriend and a prom date.
I got dumped because of you.
To like make up for the gaping hole in my heart that you have left. And you've got somebody in it. You win. And it is, it's so sad, these two little girls.
It was a really well-written scene. And I think it was kind of scary for a lot of our crew members to watch us film it, because we had so much going on behind the scenes that it was that weird line of like, what's the subtext here? Are these girls really fighting? Because they're both putting in pretty good performances right now. Like they're going for it. And I remember all the crew members afterwards coming up to us being like, are you guys okay? Like, are you okay?
Yeah.
And that was the first time I think that we'd put in performances where people that loved us and knew us were just like, hey, are you guys like, do you need something? Like, can we take care of you somehow? Because this was intense. It was really intense.
It was really intense. Well, and if I may, and this was also at a point where we were really getting f***ed with so hard behind the scenes that it changed our actual friendship.
Yes.
Like it makes me want to cry. Like, we didn't know then, but this was in a moment where you had always been much like Brooke and Peyton. Like, when I got to Wilmington, and we've talked about this, like, you were my person. And this was in an era where we were all being pitted against each other. And I think there was like, under the scene, there was real pain of, I don't know if you care about me as much as I care about you. And I see it in both directions.
Yeah.
And I know, in fact, it went like all the way around the merry-go-round of all of us girls. We were so scared because of the things that were being whispered in all of our ears. And I think it's, I think it's really part of what our characters were going through. It's part of what we were going through. And it's not something, much like Brooke and Peyton, we didn't get any help because we didn't have an adult in the room. It took us learning lessons as young women and being able to bring those back to each other eventually, and to realize it was never you and it was never me. It was the grown-ups that were supposed to take care of us wanted us to be enemies. And I think all of that happening and being good girls who came to work and did good work and really helped the crew, I think it's part of why it feels so emotional, because nobody was allowed to express anything.
I went home. Here's my admission. After the whole like fight scene in the next episode. So not this fight scene. This fight scene left me feeling really rattled.
Me too.
And
Like
I
shaken.
was unsure like how to be around you because I had hurt you. But I know that we'd also done this like work together that was important and that I loved, but it was layered with like hurt, physical and like, figurative. When we shot the next episode, and it's after they fight Psycho Derek, and you and I are seated on the front porch, like all bloody, and we've got the blankets around us, and we were taking vodka shots from a water bottle together. I went home and cried after that.
I did too.
Because I was like, it's going to work. It's going to work. Like, that was like the moment where I was like, oh, we're good. Like, together, we're a good team. And I felt like, I could make the choice to hang out with you or to just like be with you in a way where I didn't have to ask permission from anyone anymore because we'd just done this thing that was really cool together. Yeah, that was the moment when I cried.
Me too. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Yeah, it did. It weirdly I think being in such an intense situation together and coming together, like it mirrored something we'd had that in our real lives, and we both like saw it.
Yeah.
And it was the first time where I thought, if we can have this, I don't know if all the other stuff that I know is being fed in both directions here, I don't know if that's real. This feels really real.
What almost made it didn't even matter. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, say whatever you want to say. You know, I was waking up to a lot of stuff at this point when we were in season 4, because at this point where you and I filmed this episode, I had found out that things were being said about me and our creator that were not true. And that light bulb went off, and it was like, oh, but then that means that the stuff about Danielle isn't true. And that means the stuff about Sophia isn't true. And it was this domino effect. And it reached its peak when we went to Honeygrove, right?
Yeah.
So this is like the span of time between Prom and Honeygrove is when everything went to shit on our show. But between shooting this episode with you and having this like come to Jesus in this moment where like maybe we did have to have an injury in order to like come together and be like, oh, I'm really sorry. You know, like I just remember crying in the trailer because I hurt you. With JoJo, just like, oh my God, is she okay? You know, and her telling me like, calm down. You're making it a really big you have to calm down. Between that and then when we had the all-night graduation party where we really did come together as a team behind the scenes and like, yeah, this chunk of episodes is just so laced with like real life tension and then like really strong work. We took all the stuff that we couldn't say out loud and just put it in the scene. Here you guys go.
Yeah.
Here's a buffet of emotion.
Yeah.
It's like we got to take out our frustrations on what was going on behind the scenes on our guest star next week.
Oh my God, sweet Matt Barr. When that door knock happens, like sweet things are happening, and then the door, and then
Yeah.
feel like a metaphor.
You know, there's so much tender work between two people in this
Before
episode.
we move on, I love you.
I love you too. Don't make me cry. Don't make me cry.
I'm proud of us.
Well, yeah, it's hard to talk about this.
I know.
It's hard because it means admitting that like we weren't good to each other in different ways. We were like conditioned to be competitive or dismissive, or I was just aloof a lot. I was really aloof.
I think part of what's hard about it though is unlike a normal life, when you have 16 hours of work a day to do with someone, you don't have time to get in a fight. You are conditioned to not bring your personal life to work. And it can make figuring out your personal life almost impossible. Because the fear is, well, if we take the lid off this thing, it's going to explode. You can't just like have a fight or an argument like you would with your friend and take 3 days and then talk about it. It's so pressurized. And I think, to your point, we finally got to let some of the pressure out, and then everything changed. Because we could really see each other and not be manipulated into suspicion or assumption anymore.
Well, here's how you know I love you. When I left One Tree Hill, there was like, it was bad. It was really, it was bad. And I didn't talk to anybody for a very long time, but I had to put my reel together in order to go audition for other jobs. And so I'm like pregnant putting together my reel. And this is the one scene from One Tree Hill that I had on it. This is my most proud work on the show with you. I love it.
I love that.
Yeah. it's sad. I remember Paul coming into the house after Peyton like goes in and slams the door and is just like, so are you okay? Can we keep going? I'm like, yeah, no, we're great. We're troopers. We're going to be great. But this whole episode It was strong. I mean, I feel like
yeah.
any of our friends would say that about this episode. Lee got to do good stuff. Haley and Nathan got to do good stuff together. Chad and Moira got to do really good stuff together. Like, this was an episode about duos. And those are our strongest episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And you're right. I mean, what an honorable mention for Lee. It's like they made him, they just wrote him so weird in the last episode. And I feel like Mouth and who he really is back in this episode. And it's such a relief. And I love that they essentially, through these, you know, this episode and the next one, the cliffhanger into Prom, they let him be Ducky. They let him be that guy. And even in the small, generous moments, you know, Mouth texting Rachel a picture of him and Brooke and saying, "We miss you." You know, it's all as it should be. The way he is with her in the closet and she's packing. Oh my God.
Yes. But also the way she is with you. Brooke and Rachel are such a good love story.
Yeah.
When I mean, you and her and that like false goodbye before she comes back and hugs you goodbye.
I know.
So good. It's the audience's reminder that Brooke Davis is a great friend. She's a great friend and she deserves to be put first.
I also just love seeing Rachel get vulnerable. You know, even in the comedic way in which she does it. Well, yeah, I did that because I suck, but you're better than me. She has a hard time not cracking a joke in a vulnerable moment, like someone else I know. But it's raw and it's sweet and it's honest. And I do really love seeing these girls together. There's something about these two who've made mistakes making each other better that feels very, very sweet. There's a lot of sweet duos and then some not so sweet duos. And then you have the unsweetest, the bitterest duo of all in that end scene. And it seems like it's going to be sweet. The misdirect, you know, everyone's getting ready for prom and you're getting in your dress and everyone's doing their hair and it's cutting back and forth. And Lucas is tightening his tie and he's putting on his boutonniere. And then you realize it's not Lucas, it's Derek.
Dun, dun, dun. The perfect polar opposite to you at the river court asking Mouth to prom and like being with all the boys. And it's like so cute and it's so high school and it's so fun. And then it's like the exact opposite. It's not fun.
You know who is fun? Matt Barr.
Okay, you guys, we have Matt Barr. God bless. But we're just teasing you with him because he's actually going to talk with us about next week's episode, which is season 4, episode 16. You call it madness, but I call it love. That's so frightening.
It's so frightening, but we do love IRL sweet Matt Barr. So we'll see you next week.
Hey, thanks for listening.
Don't forget to leave us a review. You can also follow us on Instagram at DramaQueensOTH.
Or email us at dramaqueens@iheartradio.com.
See you next time. We're all about that high school drama girl, all about them high school queens. We'll take you for a ride in our comic girl, cheering for the right team.